Hello everyone, welcome to Road to Aintree. Ruby, Walsh and I are really looking forward to the 3 days at Aintree, and particularly, of course, the Randox Grand National. The race itself will be brilliant. There's super grade ones over the course of the 3 days, and we'll be looking at those as well. But have you enjoyed the build-up to the National?
Well, I think it's probably been a little bit quiet, but maybe I haven't been looking enough. But no, I just think it's the Grand National. It should be more news. It should be something every week about it, or every other day even. But look, I still think it's a wonderful race. It'll be a brilliant spectacle. Looking forward to the weekend, but it could be better.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on this a few series before with Road to Cheltenham and Road to Aintree, how you think you might rework the Grand National just to get horses running more often, seeing them a bit more often.
Yeah, look, the race has evolved, and whether you like it or not, it is what it is. It is evolved. The world evolves, and the National has gone to where it's gone now. But it's still the showpiece for National Hunt racing, and it's still the one race that will attract loads of outside viewers. So I do think we need to make it as big as we can. And I would make a few changes to it. For it, I would try and make it even bigger and better, and more publicity around it. OK, let's see those changes, shall we? This is Ruby's national shake-up. So talk us through this. Entries before Christmas, weights published early January. Why? I would get the entries in so the handicapper could look at the Christmas race, and there'll be that including Ascot Haydock on the 20th, or you go after that. But I would make the entries then before Christmas and make something about it, and then the weights in January, because early January, so that if you ran in the Classic Chase in Warwick, if you're down the ballot, you have a chance of getting a £4 penalty to get yourself in. I would be encouraging horses who are down in the weights to run and get in, and give them penalties to get in. So
you get the Christmas period, the second line says, from entry, run twice up to and including the Midlands Grand National. So you want to include that Christmas run, but in terms of weights, that starts to matter from early January.
Yeah, it starts to matter from early January. I think you got to include the Christmas period. You got to include the Welsh National as a run, or the Savills Chase, or whatever it is. You have to include that period for horses to run twice. So I'd stick them in. If you don't run twice, then from entries in mid to late December until the Utoxer or Midlands National, if you don't run twice, you lose your place in the ballot. You drop down in the weights. So you're
automatically dropped out of the qualifying 34?
Yeah. You're dropped down to above the first horse that's outside of the handicap. That's at 9.13. So you drop in there. I think there should be £4 penalty if you win a handicap chase. The conditions chasers, handicapper tends to have them anyway, where he should want them. It's only £2 for them, and a max of £6. If you win 2, 3, you can only go up £6 anyway. And then if you're reassessed after the weights are out, you run twice to guarantee your position. If the handicapper thinks you've run more than £3 or £4 over than your official mark, you drop down the ballot as well. If you're bang out of form, I think horses who are in form that are getting balloted out should be in the race over horses who are out of form but guaranteed a run because of their rating.
OK. Interesting ones would be horses like Nick Rocket, the title holder. What do you do with
again, that's only me throwing out ideas. There's only a debate, a discussion. Like, do you guarantee last year's winner a run in the race? Probably. You could maybe say 1, 2, 3 should be guaranteed a run. I'm open to suggestions and ideas, but I do think the conversation needs to be had. So maybe they should be guaranteed a run. So you let Nick Rocket in. That's absolutely fine. Ian Maximus and Grange Clare West, well, they would get in anyway, but they've had the runs, etc. But yeah, you probably, if you get bang on the frame in a Grand National, you should be entitled to run the next year.
I think this is really interesting, and I do think it's a conversation worth having, because I hate how static the National makes the rest of the season for many of these kinds of horses. Now, Willie Mullins tends to buck that trend. Clearly there's been issues with Nick Rocket, but he likes to get conditioning into his horses, doesn't he?
It looks that way. If you haven't run 3 times in a season, it looks like actually you haven't got the conditioning to win the race. So that's what he keeps going back to. And last year, Ian Maximus only got 2 starts. He folded from the elbow like a non-stayer. He's not a non-stayer. The lack of a run caught him out in the last furlong.
I've got a different interpretation.
Yeah, that's the brilliant of it. You have to have an opinion. But if you're only for looking at this, like, you could reassess. Lecky Watson has been disappointing. Mr. Van Gogh, High Class Hero and Jordans, they have all probably run below their marks since the weights came out. Now, they still would get in because they would only drop below Highland. Then the horses who haven't run enough would be 3-Car Bragg getting in, Percival Le Galois, Gorgeous Tom and the Real Whacker. Now, I will be balloting the Real Whacker, Marble Sands and Twig. They're in now, but I would be letting in Highland, Soul Icon and Richard Johnson's horse.
Imperial Saint.
I would have them in, and there'd be other horses out. Now, people are saying, how can you not have the Beecher Chase winner in Twig? Well, if he happened to run a second time, he would be in. He'd have guaranteed himself a place. It's only because he's only run once in those dates that he ends up getting balloting. So I think it's small things like that. Again, it's not perfect. It's just an idea. a theory, but I do think there needs to be something so that when the classic chase is over, £4 is after jumping a horse up the ballot and the national is being talked about. When the national trial is over, that horse jump up the ballot, and even the handicaps in Cheltenham, the horses, when they win them, they're jumping up the ballot and you're talking about the national.
Yeah.
It's creating talk the whole time about the Grand National.
Yeah, instead of horses running over perhaps the wrong trip, running over hurdles, not running, I much prefer this idea. So you're basically going to say, so there might be a bunch of horses that are well in, so what?
So let it be. Let that be debate. What was the horse of John Joe's and Trevor Hemmings' colours? That was £15 well in after winning in Kelso.
Oh,
that didn't get the trip.
Yes.
He looked the handicap certainly, but he didn't stay. And let there be 12 horses apparently well in. Let you pick the best one that's well in. Yeah. Let you find a winner, but create the conversation, create the debate.
Okay. Fascinating. What do you, the roadies, think? As Ruby says, it's designed to spark debate. I do agree with you. Yeah. I think it needs reviving. I'm sure you'll see some.
If your opinion is stupid, keep it yourself. If you've got positive feedback, we'll have it.
But they might pick out some flaws. There will
absolutely.
We can work towards the better.
Absolutely, we will have it constructive rather than fool.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that. Constructive thoughts about that, please. Right, okay. Let's talk about this year's race and talking points about what it looks like these days. And recently, you'll know, much as at Cheltenham and much in top-class jump racing, Irish train runners have tended to dominate. Here we are. So, at the moment, it looks the same in terms of the makeup at the field. 68% Irish trained. Willie Mullins getting an unprecedented 1, 2, 3 last time, but also Ireland with 5 of the next 6 home. Irish train 1, 2, 3, 4 in 2024, and of course, go Corach Rambler in 2023.
You're claiming him now this side of the border, yeah?
Yeah, well, we claim a bit like when we were in the Ryder Cup. I'm claiming, whichever European country does particularly well in golf. Irish Trade 1, 2, 3 in 2022, and in 2021 Henry de Bromhead with then a very rare 1, 2 initiating an Irish domination again. More certain people are arguing signs of green shoots at Cheltenham. What was your take about Cheltenham?
Yeah, I wrote a couple of weeks beforehand. I did think that the British horses would compete in the handicaps. They were strong in the Supreme, a bit thin on the ground the rest of the way in the Grade 1s. But you talk about the wheel turning, it's a huge wheel that turns slowly in racing, and it will eventually start to turn back around. I was only watching a replay of I think it was the 76 National I was looking at the other night, and the only Irish horse I recognised, maybe there's another one, I could only see Prolan.
Okay. 76, and the Dickler in that
Dickler
race,
was upsides at the Canal Turn. Tommy Stack rode Red Rum for the first time. But look, and it was obviously a very different race, but there was only 32 runners.
Right. 32 runners, yeah. Was that Rag Trade?
Rag Trade,
yeah. Okay. And Red Rum?
Second. Back the following year.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic days. But interesting, there were a couple of years there that they were hovering around the 30 mark in terms of the field size. Of course, now we have a maximum field of 34. And the new look national means that it's quite difficult to sort of pin down the involving nature of the race. So we're trying to have a go, and there's no hard and fast rules. But here's what it looks like over the last 6 years. And 5 years rather, 6 years this year will be included. The interesting thing for me was the rating of the winner. Since we made those subsequent changes, so the nature of the race changed in 2013, but then further changes were made for 2024 onwards, shorter trip, obviously, and other changes. Look at the rating of the winner, how that has changed in terms of 159 and 163. And also, we saw the percentage of the field that has horses rated 160 or plus has also increased even higher this year. Yeah,
and it is, and it's becoming a quality contest. But I guess when I was watching the Dickler in 76, I was thinking, quality horses always ran in the Grand National. Maybe not as many, but he was a Gold Cup winner, and we don't have a Gold Cup winner in this one. So that things have changed. I thought what was interesting looking back on it, the one thing that jumped out at me that hasn't really changed is the actual time the race takes. Even when you go from 4.2.5 to 4 miles and 4 furlongs. If you go back, like the fastest horse at 4 in the new distance for the Grand National was Manny Clouds, who ran it in 8.56. But it's not the track record. Mr. Frisk holds that over a furlong and a half further, now albeit in firm ground, when he won it in 8.47. So missed the brisk ran a furlong and a half further, but still managed to run it quicker. And so many times correlate. I mean, Royal Athlete won it in 95 in 9 minutes and 4 seconds. That was the same, basically a second slower than one for Arthur, who ran a furlong and a half less. So last year it took 9 minutes and 6. The year before it took Ian Maximus 9:27. And Tiger Roll, the difference in 2 of his Grand Nationals, 9 minutes 40 the first year. The second year he won it in 9 minutes and 1 second. So the times haven't changed. Papillon was 9 minutes and 9, Hedgehunter 9 minutes and 20, Bala Briggs 9 minutes and 1, Neptune Collonge 9 minutes and 5. They all ran 4.5. So by coming down a furlong and a half, it doesn't look like we made the race any quicker.
And the last 2 races have been really quite contrasting. Soft ground in 2024 and they went steady, and do you remember everyone going, oh, this is the dullest national ever. This race is going to be really boring from now onwards. Different race again last year. Good ground on times, I thought, and they went a good pace, 12 seconds quicker to the chair. They were quite well strung out by there.
They were, and as a whole the race was 23 seconds quicker, so it did. But even when you look back at it, and we look at it in a minute, it's hard to believe that of the first 8 horses away from Valentine's, only Grangeclare West finishing the money.
Yeah. I think you and I are thinking along similar lines. Right, so let's concentrate on this year's race. And the obvious place to start, as Ruby's just said, is analysis of last year's race. Yeah,
it was. And look, I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining race. And the first 4 home were spread all over the track. Ian Maximus down the inside towards the front, Grangeclare West. Nick Rocket in the black and orange is just in front of Grangeclare West. And Iroko was always dropped in a little bit. Now, Ian Maximus and Nick Rocket are side by side pretty much there. Ian Maximus makes a mistake here at the Canal Turn, though, or he's quite slow at it, and when on landing he seems to lose his position, gets quite high and pegs, and that knocks him back, because the time he gets up to the chair he is dropped a long way behind Nick Rocket and Grangeclare West. He's almost back beside or just in front of Iroko. You can see him drop back in the white cap down the inside. Broadway Boy was galloping along with Beaucourt, Tree Car Bragg and Baveman's Game on the front end. Grangeclare West, he's a good bit in front of Nick Rocket, or just a couple of lengths in front of Nick Rocket at Beechers, but he's gotten away from Nick Rocket at the fence after Valentine's. He's with those front 8. You've Beaucourt, Tree Car Bragg, Braveman's Game, Celeb Dalen, Senior Chief, Manila Cocoon or Hewick. They're the first 8, whereas Nick Rocket, Ian Maxis and Iroko were a bit behind them. They've all joined up going to the second last. Patrick is absolutely cantering. Paul is coming on Ian Maximus with the white cap, and Grangeclare West makes a bad mistake here at the last with Brian Hayes down the inside, which ultimately may well have cost them the contest in the end. Lunges at it and pecks, and that's a pretty hefty mistake to make at the end of such a long race and be able to get running again off the elbow. Now, I think fitness caught Ian Maximus here. You think something else?
I just think that because he couldn't really hold his position on the quicker ground in a more quickly run Grand National, his jumping wasn't as fluent. He lost his position as you've just described. And I think, in contrast to Nick Rocket, who just took a position, got in a beautiful rhythm, never moved from that position, that he'd wasted energy, and by the end he hadn't got much left. Whereas Nick Rocket was really efficiently ridden, just beautifully, flowingly ridden, and that's why he won so comfortably.
Yeah, look, I'm not disagreeing with it. I just thought from the water fence home, Ian Maximus, to me, it was conditioning was the difference. He missed the Bobby Joe. Yeah, everyone has to have a theory. And he missed the Bobby Joe last year, and I wondered, did that catch him in the last 100 yards there? We'll find out on Saturday.
And I think
cheek pieces as well.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I think cheek pieces, they're watering at Aintree. 8 to 10 mils put on Tuesday. 8 to 10 mils we expect to have put on by the time you're watching this on the Wednesday. They're aiming for good to soft ground, aren't they? And so it might not be quite as quick, but I do think those cheek pieces are going to help Ian Maximus hold his position.
They could do, yeah, definitely. And look, they've worked on other horses for Willie this season. And
they are the go-to.
They are the go-to, yeah. There's boxes of them below, so it could be a bonfire next week if Ian Maximus doesn't win. But no, look, they do seem to be doing a trick on some horses, and you would have thought they'd be a help to him. He is a bit of a character, and there's always the chance that when you do put cheek pieces or blinkers on some horses, they completely back out of it.
Yes.
Don't think he will, but there is that chance.
No, you're right, because he is a bit of a character. He likes to burrow down fences sometimes, doesn't he?
Stop.
I think from what you're saying there, that you and I have a similar reading of Grangeclare West. I think he did too much too soon, and I think he's got a screaming chance this time around.
I think so too. Just when you look back, and I would be forever looking back and see in a race and see where was the winner, where were the horses that were concerned at the end, and that generally puts you in where the right place was to be. And whilst he was there for a long way, I think from Beechers back around towards the Melling Road, I think Grangetown West just got too close to the pace, whereas the others dropped off it and had a bit left to do him at the end.
So let's look at the Bobby Joe, Ruby. It seems logical to look at it here.
Yeah, it does, and all of these are going to run bar the grey intense raffles. Away from the stands, Lecky Watson made a bit of a mistake. He's a habit of doing that, but look, entry fences and a bit of drier ground might suit him. Answer the Cave was a bit slow at that fence as well. Captain Cody got low at the 2 fences down from Ballyhack, and I thought Brian Hayes was good and brave to put him back in the contest the way he was jumping. But look, if he gets his jumping together on nicer ground, he could well get involved. Spanish Harlem looked like somebody switched him off going to the 5th last. He just dropped out of the shot, and now cheap pieces are back on him that he wore in the Tayestes when he unseated. But Grangetown West was always just creeping from the back. Now Stellar Story in the blinkers turned in front, Jerry Colon beside him. But to be fair to Stellar Story, he had the £8 penalty. He was giving way to everything. Grangetown West, who stepped at the second last like he did in the last in the Grand National, quickened up nicely to go inside Jerry Colon. But he's meeting all of these horses worse for this race. But the big thing I think for Grangetown West is heavy ground is not his forte. I think on a bit good to soft, bit drier ground really suit him, and I think he'd be much better for it. But I do think Stellar Story was the other one to take out of that contest. He has a huge swing at the weights.
He does.
Grangetown West.
He does. I'm just struck by how hands and heels it was for Grangetown West.
Yeah, he was snug, wasn't he? Wait,
mistake, and then delivered.
Yeah, but he was a snug enough winner, and listening to Dick Dowling rides him the whole time, he's adamant he'd be better on better ground as well.
Okay. Answer to Cave featured in that race. Let's take a look at him, because he's also a potential pace angle or a presser for the pace for this year's National.
Yeah, there does look to be a few, and to get a strong gallop you need more than one out and out front runner. You need 3 or 4 front runners or more to guarantee you a gallop in a Grand National. And I do think we have a couple of horses that really like to be on the pace, and I think that could ensure that you get a really strong gallop. Now there's loads of horses who like to sit just around the pace and just behind the pace, but you need actual front runners. Spanish Harlem will bounce, Mr Van Gogh, the real whacker, Beauport, top of the bill, Answer the Cave. You get 2 or 3 of those wanting to taking each other on. Like, I couldn't see any of those 6 wanting to be any further back than 6th. So they're going to be pushing the pace forward. I
just wonder about Answer to Cave. He was a bit hesitant, pressed on the brakes the first 2 fences in the Bobby Joe, and I just wonder whether he'll might do the same in the National as well.
70,000 people will get him on his game.
Yeah, I'm not sure he wants to be on his game necessarily. Just to come back to the winner, because last year's race, we didn't really sort of focus on Nick Rocket enough. As I said, I felt he was a ready winner, beautifully positioned, got in a wonderful rhythm, but he's only had the 1 run. Is that a big doubt for you?
It will be for me. Personally, I think it would be a big negative. He was a very good winner. He's only a 9-year-old. But I think prep is key for a Grand National, and I think having only had the 1 run, which was an okay run at Down Royal behind Jerry Colon on St Patrick's Day, but I would like to have seen, or I'm sure Willie would love to have gotten more runs into him. He didn't. Stone bruise and something an overreach, but it's just been stop-start, and it's a bit like running a marathon at the Grand National. I think you just need a really good prep, and that would be against him for me anyway.
Right. Let's move on to the Savills Chase. So just after Christmas, and this is packed full of runners as well.
It is packed full of runners as well. Obviously, you had Gallop and the Champagne here and Fast or Slow, who have both gone by the wayside since. Champ Kiley clips Fast or Slow's heel here as it turned out of the back straight and ended up on the floor. And then he pulled out of Tremor a couple of days later, which was too soon for him, unfortunately. Affidavit of Fury was going left, but the Grand National horses were all in a bunch there at the back, except another way of thinking. Monty Star ran well on this occasion. Lecky Watson, Grangetown West, I Am Maximus up on the outside, Green Cap, White Star eventually gets the closest. I thought Monty Star ran on really well from the back on this occasion. He doesn't get beaten as far as he looks like he's going to be beaten turning in. Now he had a poor run in the the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup after that, but look, this is a solid run. I Am Maximus, Grangetown West. There's 11-10, 11-8. I think Maya Maximus is a couple of pounds better off for Grangetown West for last year. Lecky Watson was probably his best run of the year, and I think Monty's Star, the one coming home there, I've always thought a Grand National might suit him. I love the way he finished in the Savills. I just thought he was disappointing in the Irish Gold Cup.
Yeah, immediately after that race, you quite fancied him for the Grand National, didn't you?
I just think he's just shy of Grade 1 level, or you know what I mean. I think Grand National will really suit him. But look, Henry's done it before with Manila Times, and he has Gorgeous Tom, who's following a similar profile to Manila Times, and I think he's a big runner as well.
Yeah, I'd be eyeing whatever Henry de Bromhead sends to the National with some trepidation or some joy if I've backed the horse. And also that Lecky Watson, I do think that was his best run of the season. And if you're basing the argument, as I think I will be, of him running a better race on a sounder surface, that comes into it. I think he was in the wrong part of the track as well. So.
He was down the inside there.
Yeah.
But he does go left, doesn't he? He's a tendency to go. He did. He was out left in the Bobby Joe. He does go a bit to his left.
Okay. Let's talk about Novice, Oscar's brother, who has been a bonny little horse this season, but jumping?
Yeah, he's brilliant, but is it that an advantage like it was in the past? Backs off the first here in Navan. Only a 4-run race, not that competitive. But watch the height he got here. That's like scope and power, but in Aintree these days, I'm not so sure. Same with the first in the Brown Advisory. He went there in front of Final Demand. Look at the height he got. And that was in a more crowded field. You put him in with 34s. You're going to jam on at the first and end up at the back of the field? He might, but what you'd have to like about him was the way he came home in the Brown Advisory. He had third last fence. Again, he's very clean, but he looks like being a bad 6th or 7th there at best. Yeah, when you get to the back of the last, he's the one that's coming home. And in another couple of furlongs, or not even a couple of furlongs, how much closer was he going to get? I'd say he's a very good horse. That was a good run. I just worry that he'll get himself out of position down over the first 3 fences.
He's got a great technique. I just feel like it's effortful, but he'd have to try and jump through, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? You nearly have to hurdle rather than jump, and he's a jumper.
Yeah, OK, so that's a bit of a negative. Ultima as well is going to be a key race, and this was quite JP McManus dominated as well. Yeah,
it was, not by the first one in the market. At the back of the field was Jaguar with Mark Walsh, who eventually runs on to finish where he finishes, but he has his own way of jumping, doesn't he? He's only in first-time cheap pieces as well.
Yep.
Could argue for a blindfold. Confusion falls here, and look at Imperial Saint, who gets really badly hampered. I thought he did well to finish where he finished in the Ultima, but look, it's not going to matter. He's a reserve now. Jaguar does come from the back of the field. Johnny Who's in front of him. That was arguably a better jump for him, but Iroko was always struggling. Now I know he scoped bad. He was 4th last year, so you have to put a line through this. Johnny Who's only mistake came at the 3rd last under Richie McLernan. He switched in then and got a beautiful split to go about winning the race. Jaguar out through the last, hind end first, but look, that might suit him at Aintree. And when you look through his jump index numbers, they are a lot different to what your eye sees of him jumping, but that was Search for Glory and Seaton. He ran poorly in the Irish Grand National the other day, but Johnny Who is sure to stay. Iroko, not Iroko, Jaguar even, you can just see him looking maybe like it's going to happen off the elbow and not winning.
Yeah, so do you think he's got a winning problem? Do you think he's a not-go buyer? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what he is. I'm not following him off the cliff anyway.
Yeah, he's one of those horses that I think could go one way or another with the National. As you say, his jumping, he gets over them even though it looks ugly, and that might not matter in a modern National.
He finds a leg now.
He does.
Yeah.
And also, I think he might stay as well. So
possibly.
I can see him running well. I don't want to fancy him. I don't want to back him, but I can see him running well.
I wish him the very best of luck.
Okay. Johnny Who isn't he going to run well? Second in the Kimure last year, winner of the Ultima.
Good run in Ascot earlier in the year as well. He gets in now with no penalty, and he has a big chance.
He does throw in an error sometimes.
He can. 3rd last at Cheltenham, but that kind of an error won't slow you down at Aintree because it was a front end error, wasn't it? He hits it in front, but he'd be fine here.
So at the time of speaking, Imperial Saint not in, but I could see him running well. I think the flat track's going to suit him as well.
Get in if I my way.
he would be in. And Iroko, I was again watching the last year's National back. He kind of got behind early. I think he was a little bit unfortunate, but again, I think it was ground related. I think it was ground related in the Ultima. I think the quicker ground means he can't hold his position.
Watching it back, I thought he was close enough. Beechers, Fine Ave, Canal Turn to the winner and the second. I think he was plenty close enough to them there to have gotten closer than he did.
Yeah, I agree. I think he made. It was an effort to make that ground. If you see what I mean. I just don't think the conditions suited him very well. Right, let's move on to some others, starting with Jordan's.
Don't know. Stamina, probably a question mark. Cracking run here last year as a novice. Now, again, made a few niggly mistakes in the way around, having run in the Brown Advisory. There goes Dancing City, brings down Key de Bourbon, who runs as well. And he comes in here off the back of 2 pulls up and then finished third, which was a cracking run for him. But he has his jumping issues as well. I did think Jordan was coming to beat Caldwell Potter. Couldn't get to him, but I think the way he jumped and plugs onto the line, will he stay, won't he stay? I just think there, the last 100 yards, I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure. I can see the angle with Jordan's.
Yeah, I can too, and it looks like it's been targeted for the race, big time, but just stamina is a question mark.
Okay. I'm more positive, I think.
Yeah.
Cross country is the next bit of evidence we're going to show you, with final orders winning it, and beforehand, Favre de Champs playing around beforehand.
Oh, he had a right strop on, hadn't he? Beforehand with Jack Kennedy. Not something I'd noticed him doing before, but he could well always behave this way. I have never really studied Favre de Champs doing the way to the start. Final orders booked out, was always in a really good position under Cornerstone Walsh. Jumped like a buck, and Favre de Champs was on his tail every step of the way. Couldn't just get to him and couldn't get by him, but they had this race between themselves from a long way out. Final order's a deadly little jumper, isn't he? He's low and quick, and he flicks over these cross-country races. Favre de Champs I think he ran a blinder here, but I just think in the National, he's up 17 pounds from the mark at which he won the Paddy Power. He's an 11-year-old. Can he win a Grand National? I'm not so sure. I probably prefer Final Orders at the two.
Yeah, and the way you just highlighted the way that Final Orders jumps, that he's going to be suited by a modern.
He is, isn't he?
And a soundish surface is going to help.
Yeah, and I know he's gotten a bit older, but he did have the pace to win at 2 miles in his youth. So he will have the speed to hold a decent position.
Super little horse, and I just hope that Favre de Champs is on better behaviour, because you don't need one causing issues at the start of the National, and we know that going back over the years. No,
sure, what can you do? So I was one ball child in the bunch.
Usually is. Yeah, then there's 2 or 3 others that start crying as well.
They just think it's great crack then. So if he's getting away with it, we may as well try.
Suddenly you've got a riot. Right. Going a little bit back in time, going to last season's Brown Advisory, and this involves a number of horses with a big chance: Lecky Watson, Stellar Story, Gorgeous Tom and Key de Bourbon, who you've just mentioned.
Yeah, it does, and they all have the kind of profile that you're thinking will give them a chance. Now, there was Stellar Story landing on the ditch, which was a pretty awkward looking jump. Gorgeous Key de Bourbon, Gorgeous Stellar Story's in the white cap. Last ditch, Dancing Key de Bourbon just dropped his rear end in and got rid of Patrick. Third last fence, Lecky Watson jumped his way to the front as Dancing City and tried to get rid of Danny. But look, this is a good effort from Lecky Watson, and it's a standout run for him. Now, Stellar Story keeps plugging away. Gorgeous Tom, he's probably the interesting one, Lydia, in that he always looks like he wants further, but every time he goes up in trip, he still hasn't made him any quicker. I mean, Henry did run him in the Galway hurdle, so he's obviously a horse that shows a bit of speed at home. But that was Lecky Watson's standout performance, and even on the weights, Stellar Story off that is probably not badly treated, but better days ahead, isn't it? It was third.
Yeah.
He was well beaten in Monday's Irish National.
He was. So Lecky Watson can throw in errors, we've seen that, but generally I feel they might be ground related to a large degree. It looks like he finds it difficult to jump out of more holding ground.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. That was his best on the jumping was in Cheltenham, and on a bit better ground he may well come alive.
And like you, I quite like the Gorgeous Tom at a marathon trip angle. Looking at his pedigree, looking at the way he keeps on, I just wonder whether that might be his thing.
I do, but when I look back through the form book for him, when he goes up in trip, he doesn't look any quicker. He seems to look, when he goes to 3 miles, like he wants another half a mile. Okay. He seems to want another half a mile in every race you run him in.
Okay. Well, we can't go higher than this. This is it, Gorgeous Tom. We're not going any further than this. One of the mares of the season, one of the horses of the season has been Panic Attack, and she's been brilliant for the Skeltons.
Magic. Look, we're going to watch her in the Paddy Power, and it was her jumping that really caught my eye through the early part of the season. When she won here, I actually thought she wouldn't get the trip in the Coral Gold Cup, but get it. I'd say the trip even improved her and helped her carry the penalty. She's a magic jumper, but she doesn't dwell in the air or anything. She's quick and accurate and gets over them. Probably got outpaced by Dino Blue in the Mrs. Paddy Power at the festival, but it's still a great prep run for the Grand National. Hard to believe that, having won the Paddy Power and the Coral Gold Cup, that she needed a few scratches to get herself into the Grand National.
Yeah, I mean, they were sweating on that. I mean, just going back to your revision Grand National, I suppose many people might argue that you would want the winners of the sort of banner handicaps in Ireland and in Britain to be getting into the race.
You would, yeah. And you would imagine that her mark would have got her, after winning those races, would be high enough to guarantee a run at entry stage. But look, she's a very good mare. She has a good chance. She stays really well, which I didn't think. And she has a squeak, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree. I think she'll run well. To Aintree has already won a Grand National, the Irish one, last season as a novice.
And it looks like I gave him an outside chance in the Gold Cup, but it does look like competitive handicaps really do suit him, the competitive nature of it, something going along with him. He's going to be up there on the pace-ish. Not saying he'd be front running or anything, but look, this is a good performance from him in the Irish National. He carried this penalty to go and win a Welsh Grand National. His 2 disappointing runs have been in Grade 1 chases. He folded quickly in the Gold Cup. He never showed up in the Betfair Chase, but look, he stays forever. He's a solid jumper. Yeah, and these races do look to be his cup of tea. I think possibly the ground was a fraction quick for him in the Gold Cup. He went along in front and he jumped fine.
He doesn't like leading.
No, but he could. I agree with you. I didn't think he liked to be in front in Newbury. He liked something going with him and taking him on. Sean Bohm is trying his best to get Grade 1 horses at it behind him, but he couldn't. And they just ganged up. And when they went by him, they shot by him off the home turn and he fell out the back of the television.
Well, I mean, I think he's obviously going to get company on the lead this time around, so he'll get into a nice rhythm.
Those 5 or 6 horses we talked about, that's the kind of horses that really suit Haughty Colour. They'll keep dragging him and keep him competitive, and he will. If you fancy him, you'll definitely be him in a show crossing back over the Mellon Road.
I agree. I think he's going to run really well. Right, betting. We talked about all of those without thinking about the prism of betting. I Am Maximus, second last year, winner 2 years ago, and already for that record a Grand National legend in my book. So 6-1 favourite ahead of his stable companion Grange Clare West. Ultima winner Johnny Who is 9-1 along with the horse that finished second to him, Jaguar. Close your eyes. Any others on that caption? We've gone through all of those actually.
We have pretty much, haven't we? In fairness, yeah. We did go through them all.
Yeah, we did. We did. Well, okay.
By accident.
We did. We were thinking it from a form perspective, and that correlates with what the betting says. Right. In a moment, we're going to be joined by Josh Stacey. He's going to be giving his 1, 2, 3, 4 for the National, as is Ruby, as am I, and we're going to be looking ahead to Saturday's racing first off, besides the National.
The race, again, it opens up down to the second last, and Paul has said to me he might idle in front, so I'm thinking just keep taking the lead. We wing this, and I land in front, and I think, I'm in front way too early. So I just keep sitting, I take them back, keep filling them up. You're coming down to the last National, that's what you dream about. You're thinking, please let me meet this right.
Welcome back. Josh has joined us as advertised, and younger brain cells. I reckon you know that horse that we're trying to reach for?
It was Cloth Cap, Lydia.
Yes. I knew it had a C in it.
Love those no-alls, don't you?
You used to be able to do that kind of recall thing. Right, in all seriousness, we talked about the National, but there are other races on Saturday, but clearly we've only got the decks for Thursday and Friday at the time of talking. So Josh is going to bring us some news, and we're going to go through the races, the key races on the day as well. So let's start by taking a look at the Liverpool Hurdle. And Wood Who is the 7-4 favourite with her stable companion Honesty Policy at 9-2. Do they both go, Josh?
They do, yeah. I spoke to Gordon Elliott this morning, and Wood Who and Honesty Policy go. I suppose the only time we've seen Wood Who beaten was at this meeting last year, but she was beaten by Lossiemel, so we'll forgive her that. So good to see both of them in there. And then also Supremely West down there, sort of 14-1 mark. He's also entered in the 3-mile handicap hurdle. He's jocked up for this and not the 3-mile handicap hurdle, but that's not the plan. He's going to run in the handicap. He's running off a mark of 145, which is £9 higher than when he won the Potemps very impressively at the Cheltenham Festival. I think that Dan Skelton thinks he can go into graded level over 3 miles, but it might be next season, and he wants to do it in incremental rises rather than going straight into a grade 1. If you're not good enough to go and win that and you finish 4th, 5th, you might be put up £6, and that could have massive consequences for how many races he could win next year.
Yeah, I get that. In terms of Woodhoo and the trip, I mean, she was an excellent second to Lossie Mouth.
She was, and to me, looking at her, she always strikes. She's one that could be going up in trip rather than down in trip. I thought she was good at the Cheltenham Festival, and she's just a very good mare. She'll take all the beating. Technically, Home by the Lee is the highest rated horse. He comes out bang on with Woodhoo, 161 to 154. But no, I would be in the Woodhoo camp.
Yeah, and I can see Honesty Policy running well as well. I think a stronger run race would have suited a bit more at Aintree. And he's got that win over 2.5, hasn't he, last season as a novice?
Just got up. Looked like he wanted 3, didn't he?
Exactly. So let's move on to the Mag Hill Novices Chase, and here's the betting for that. With Salvatore Mundi, 6-4 favourite at the top. What's the news here?
Yeah, but both of Dan's Should Run, Be Aware and Mirabad. I think Dan clearly thinks that Be Aware's got so much ability, and if he puts it all together, he'd be competitive. He's a difficult horse to train, difficult horse to get right on the day. But what's interesting with him is he was in 3 races. He's in the handicap, he's also in the 2.5 mile novices chase, and I think this wasn't the intended target at the start of the week. But when the entries came out, I think Dan thought it could be not an opportunity to go and win a race, but go very close in a Grade 1. So they decided to come here instead. So yeah, both of the Skelton horses run.
OK, looks like there could be quite a bit of pace there.
It does, yeah, plenty of pace in there. But I just think flat tracks really suit Salvatore Mundi. He was good here last year, and it's been the plan for him.
If there is a lot of pace, I can see it setting up for no questions asked. I think he needs a strong pace sort of collapsing and him over 2 miles and him coming through. I think that might suit him best.
Long straights a help for that, but
yes,
they did think he wanted further. He ran against Wendigo over 2.5.
I know. And Mighty Bandit's progressive.
He's so progressive as well, and he's been winning on similar tracks, both Doncaster and Newbury as well. He's very one-dimensional, likes to go forward, but I do think that he's a horse massively on the up, and it does look like a winnable race. OK. Turner's Mersey Novices Hurdle next. And Zeus Power, although he's been declared for the Sefton on the previous day, is in that betting. Bossman Jack is 5-2. His stable companion Soldier Reeves at 6-1, and Ballyfad splitting them at 7-2. Ballyfad runs as well, an intended runner. He was in the 2 mile novices hurdle as well, but hasn't been declared for that. The intention was to go here at the start of the week, and that's where they're going to go. Both of the Skelton horses will run as well, Bossman Jack and Soldier Reeves. I think Soldier Reeves was ridden to pick up the pieces under Tristan Durrell, and it was a fantastic ride, whether I think Dan thinks that Bossman Jack is probably the more talented of the two, but he was unlucky. I think he could have finished second with a clearer run at the last as well. I quite fancy Ollie Murphy's Scorpio Rising. He was, I thought, really impressive at Sandown in what looked a decent EBF final. He is quite uncomplicated, travelled really nicely and picked up as well, so I hope that he can go close. Any view there? The way Cocktail Brew bounced back at Ferryhouse during the week, I think Ballyfad could bounce back as well. I think he's a very good horse. I always thought he wanted to be going up and trip at Cheltenham rather than staying at 2 miles, and I think 2.5 will really suit him. And the form is quality as well. It does just go out to his right, I suppose. Yeah, he's still going to do that. He's going to do that, but by Saturday in Entry, hurdles could be very much stand side up the straight. Yeah, it may not be so much of an issue. I definitely prefer Bossman Jack of the 2 Skelton horses. Right, not including the Grand National. What other news do you have? Ollie Murphy, who I spoke to this morning, has got 5 in the 3 mile handicap hurdle. 4 of them will run. The only one that won't is Santos Blue. So Wade Out will revert back to hurdles after the National Hunt Chase. Very wise. Very wise. Good to Be Alive will run. Ikarak will run and Hold the Serve, and Sean Bowen will ride Hold the Serve. Right. And finally, the jockeys news for the Grand National. Yeah, it's interesting. The big news coming out of it is Jack Kennedy had the choice of 5. He had the choice of Jerry Colombe, Firefox, Favori de Champdu, 3 Card Bragg, and Stella Story, and he chose Jerry Colombe. Reaction? He's been improving all year. I thought Stella Story maybe would be the one last season as a novice that was going forward. It could be ahead of the handicapper, but it looks like most of the Cullen Trail jockeys have overlooked him, and that could be enough. Jerry Colombe, I can see the big test of stamina suiting, and he looks like the last 2 races were a lot more encouraging. He was taking a cut at his fences. I was worried he wasn't actually going to get that mojo back at all. No, he definitely has it back all right. The run over hurdles seemed to crown him. Yeah. Your views on that? Were you surprised by Jack's choice? I probably was. I thought Stella Story, I agree with Ruby, would be the one that he'd ride. But with Jerry Colombe, even when he was off the track, they never lost faith in him. When they came back, they expected him to still retain that ability. And as an older horse, that doesn't always happen. Keith Donoghue will ride Firefox, Danny Gilligan will ride Favori de Champdu, and Jordan Gainford will ride 3 Card Bragg. Robbie Dunn rides Stella Story. OK, I can see 3 Card Bragg winning well, ridden a bit more patiently. But I suppose he did weaken quite quickly in the Bobby Joe, which might worry. Yeah, he hadn't run since
Coral Gold Cup, Paddy, 3-car brag. Probably paying for the chase he won in Cheltenham in October. The penalty there might just slow him down.
Any other business?
That's it.
Okay, apart from, I haven't just brought you in here to bring news. You've got to give your 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do for the roadies. I do have to give my 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've gone for Grange Clare West to go and win the race. I was very impressed with him in the Bobby Joe. He's got to defy a high mark, but I think he can do that. And he's the one horse that I think we're yet to see the absolute best of in his career. I think we could say it here. Captain Cody, his best form was over 4 miles in the Scottish Grand National. Similar conditions ground-wise. I think that he's crying out for a trip. You have to obviously forgive him for his last run, but I think you can. Iron Maximus won the race 2 years ago, second in the race last year. I think he's almost as good as he's ever been as well. That run at Christmas behind Daffodil Fury at Leopardstown, I thought was huge. And then Dan Skelton's Panic Attack, who I just think will travel into the race really nicely. I wonder whether she'll absolutely get home in a stamina test, but I think that you'll be quite giddy if you're on her at the halfway point.
Okay, Ruby, your turn.
Yeah, pretty well. Similar-ish, Grange Clare West for me as well. Cracking run last year, mistake at the last. Different result without it. Monty Starr has always struck me as a horse who would excel in this kind of a contest, so I've gone with him. Iron Maximus to fill the 3, and Gorgeous Tom could be Willie Mullins versus Henry de Bromhead. And
mine, look, having to do very little changing at the top. I can't believe we've got a full house for Grange Clare West. I mean, we did not confer beforehand. My mouth dropped when I saw that it was your number 1 as well, Josh. So, okay, so Grange Clare West, for the reasons already articulated, I think it's got a stonking chance based on last year's run, and also the fact he's had a really good season this season, well conditioned. Gorgeous Tom, I think this trip is going to suit. I just think Panic Attack's a stonking jumper, and I take the point about stamina, Josh, but I just think that the way she ran at Newbury suggested to me that this might well be within her compass. And then I like to put one in at a big price to hit the frame, and I think Lecky Watson on a sounder surface on his best form, I think he can do that for Willie Mullins. Right, I'm really sorry to anyone who's backed Grange Clare West, anyone who's connected with Grange Clare West, to Grange Clare West. All I can say is that we are really sorry. Josh, thank you very much for your news, and in a few moments' time, Ruby and I will be looking at Thursday and Friday of Aintree. Right, so solid ground for Thursday and Friday. We have the declaration. So let's start with the Thursday, and we're going to go with the bowl first off, sponsored by Racing Welfare. Just the 5 of them, and Django Bai is the 5 to 6 favourite ahead of Impare Pass, who ran poorly at Cheltenham at 7 to 2. Spillane's Tower, for whom the ground might be a bit quick, 4 to 1. Protectorat, who's run well at this meeting consistently, 15 to 2. Pick Dorhe, the outsider of the lot. Django Bai second in the Gold Cup, the best form to the table?
It is the best form to the table, but it does come with the caveat of Gold Cup horses going from Cheltenham to Liverpool, and it's not easy. Look, he ran his heart out in the Gold Cup. Had a better position early in the race, was struggling a little bit at halfway, but got right beside Gaelic Warrior. No hard look story from Lydia. He just wasn't as good as the winner on the day. A tiny bit of a mistake at the third last, but to me he gave everything and a bit here. I think it was a career best for him. He ran his heart out, and I don't know, maybe you always look at your own experiences, but to me, I just not convinced about horses that go to the well like he did in the Gold Cup, bouncing back at Aintree.
I think it's really relevant in his case. Now, I know he's a year more mature, but he ran up light last year. It was a lesser performance at Aintree. Paddock watchers were saying that he didn't look the same horse as he did at Cheltenham. So I do think that is something to bear in mind. So it might be worth looking at him. I think he's a fabulous horse. But
it's hard to explain. Like, how do you say, well, the horse that was second in the Gold Cup, he's had too hard a race, but I fancy one that couldn't even finish.
Yeah. So you fancy Empire
I thought that I say I fancy him, but you have to come back to make a case for him. Like, what beats Django Bai?
He likes this track.
He does like this track, Empire Pass, but he was an absolute no-show in the Ryanair. And Protectorat, maybe he's the one.
Well, he's finished second to John Bon in the Melling, third to John Bon in the Melling, now 3 miles at Aintree.
Yeah, one up at Kelso. He's got 3 miles before in the past. He's the one that is coming here fresh and ready to go, and it could be his day. That's with the caveat that Spillane's Tower doesn't run. I think if Spillane's Tower runs, he'll win the rest.
OK, obviously Jimmy Mangum took all the way to Liverpool last year and didn't run him because of the quicker ground.
And they declared him in the National for Saturday, thinking that might be slower. So, look, we won't know until tomorrow.
OK. Right, move on to the Aintree hurdle, which is a fascinating rematch of the champion hurdle. The new line is the 7-4 favourite. Brighter Days Ahead, who is a course and distance winner from her novice days, is 15-8. Al Fabiolo, who's fresh, is 5-1. Alexei, who made quite a significant final hurdle error, is 15-2. This is interesting.
It is, and it's a good race. Really good race. I'm not sure Brighter Days Ahead, Cheltenham, that she ever turned up in the champion hurdle. She never was going the gallop we know she can get up to. You know, Lossima was always galloping over from the word go. And the new line, look, obviously from the fall in the fighting fifth to the international, which was a schooling race, I just don't think he was battle hardened enough for this myself, and I think he's the one that will improve out of it. But I just always felt that Lossima was galloping over Brighter Days Ahead. She's run really well to finish second. Golden Ace didn't lose much. As you say, Alexei made that mistake. Do you think Alexei will stay?
It's a doubt in my mind.
Doubt in mine as well. I think he's a pacey individual, and I just have concerns about him. But I do think the new lion, that was his first proper run of the season. I think he'd improve for that.
And I do think this step up in trip will help him as well, in the way that he'll step. It'll also help Brighter Days Ahead as well, though. Yeah,
and she went from Cheltenham, where Golden Ace beat her, to absolutely blowing her rivals away over 2.5 at Aintree as a novice hurdler. But I do think he just had too easy a season, and I think he'd be a better horse for that run.
Yeah, I don't know which way I'm going to go with those two at this stage. I mean, I think he's had a wide trip. I agree with you. He hasn't had the same kind of season, but he's sure to prize the Brighter Days Ahead.
Yeah.
Who beat him just there?
She did, and she has the course and distance form.
Yeah. Hence my question mark. Right, the manifesto is the next one we'll talk about. Lulamba stepping up in trip, and I think everybody was feeling that that's what he wanted to do. If there'd have been a 2.5 miler at Cheltenham, which thankfully there isn't, that's probably what he'll be doing. So 8-13 for the manifesto ahead of Cocktail de Vin, who tried the longer trip at Cheltenham. It did not work. That's my reading of it anyway. 5-2, 11-1 bar. Thoughts?
Same as you just said. I don't think either of us thought the trip would suit Cocktail de Vin at Cheltenham anyway. We'd watched him at Punchestown earlier in the year where Oscar's brother outstayed him. I do think Lulamba going up in trip will just find Everton a little easier, and I think Cocktail de Vin will suit him. Nico tried his best to force Cargis along in the Arkle to try and drag a bit of stamina into the race, but Danny wasn't having it and kept slowing it down, and as much as Nico tried to push Danny was just slowing it down, and then he got done in a sprint off the bend. He made a mistake at the second last, and obviously Cargis was the better jumper. Kopek de Boer misses the last, and I just think he's always looked like a horse that wants 2.5. He came alive at halfway in the Henry VIII, and it'll suit him. I think Cocktail de Vin will drag him to success.
I think that's a really strong Arkle, and I thought he ran really, really well in a race where he was up against it, not because of his class, but just because it wasn't the right race for him.
Speed as well,
yeah.
And
he'll have learned plenty again.
Absolute loads, yeah.
Yeah. Right, and then we have the Boodles Anniversary 4-year-old hurdle. Couple of headgear notes. Ames has a first-time visor. He'll need to brush up his jumping. And Lord has a first-time cheek pieces. Selma de Vary, who was fourth in the Triumph Hurdle, is the favourite here at 11-4, ahead of the second Maestro Conti at 3-1 and the third Milad Seri at 100-30, and Winston Jr. 9-2 second in the Fred Winter. Right, what do you make of the betting there as compared to what happened in the Triumph Hurdle?
Thankfully, the betting is not my job. But look, the Triumph was an interesting race and a good race to watch. Obviously, Apollon de Charny comes through to win, but I thought Manila Study ran really well. Just got in a little bit of a pocket at the top of the hill here, and Ryan Mania had to fight to hold his corner, and the horse came alive on him, and then ended up probably a little bit closer than Ryan wanted to be. That's what he said when he came in. I think he was being harsh enough on himself. He sat all the way off the bend here and waited for Maestro Conti to come. Selma de Vary tried to come outside him on the left, a shot as we're looking, and they end up and a little bit of a tit for tat here to the last, Paul and Harry, but Harry keeps going forward and Paul has to go back. I actually think on the flatter track, I think Manila Study is the one. I thought he ran an absolute blinder, led them down to the last, and ultimately gets outstayed. And To Aintree, long straight, it can get into a bit of a stamina contest, but I really like this fella, and I think he'll turn it around with Maestro Conti. I think he'll hold Selma de Vary, and he'll be the one for me.
At one point you were talking about Salma Davari as being a potential champion hurdle horse for next season because she's quite pacey. There's not a great deal of her. I felt that she and Minella City would both be suited by Aintree.
They would, but I just keep looking at her and thinking there's been nothing of you all year. You've been to Leopardstown, now you've been to Cheltenham, now you're going to Aintree.
Right.
I just think she was obviously in training in France. I just think she'd be a different filly next season.
Yeah. I do think that Maestro Conti is probably the best long-term prospect
Possibly.
of a lot of them. But let's see. Right, the Fred Winter, it all went wrong at the start for Winston Jr.
Yeah, got squares up down the very inside here as they came through the tapes. Horse on his inside was Ames, I think, wasn't it? And Quinta del Lago on his outside. You can see it from this angle actually even better. Jack ends up clipping heels and disappears, and that puts him right on the back foot from the word go. Saratoga had a beautiful position every step of the way under Mark Walsh, whereas Jack Kennedy had got so far back and was trying to find a way through the field then. Didn't get the clearest of runs, thought he came home well. And I saw Saratoga was good, Lydia, but there is a jump from the handicap to the Grade 1, and Winston Jr. has to improve.
Yeah, afterwards, Faye Bramley said that Jack Kennedy came and apologised for what happened early on with Winston Jr., but it was one of those messy starts, wasn't it? There were so many.
That's what happens at a start. It can happen any day of the week. When you get a neck down, you're the meat and sandwich. And look, I think it was disappointing for him on the day, but I do think he has to go up again to win a Grade 1.
It's not unknown, though, is it? It's not unknown. And, you know, that he's a better than the finishing position. Not necessarily the finishing position. It's better than the beaten margin, and because everything went wrong, I can see him improving again.
He can improve again. Sanctuary went to Aintree and couldn't do it. That's the only experience I had of it. I can't think off my head of one that did do it, but it is a gulf.
Okay, right. That's Thursday. In a moment, we'll move on to Friday. Okay, one bit of news that we should have brought you in terms of the Grand National is who's riding Grange Clare West? Who do you reckon?
Patrick?
That's a tell, isn't it?
Well, I can see why he wouldn't ride Nick Rocket. Emotionally or sentimentally, yes, but Patrick's 34 or 5 years of age, and I think Nick Rocket's had just, his prep hasn't been ideal, so if I was Patrick making a hard decision, I can see why he went for Grange Clare West.
I think so can you and I. So can Josh. I'm slightly retracting that apology to you, Grange Clare West. Right, let's take a look at the William Hill Mildmay Novices Chase to kick off our preview of Friday at Aintree. And there are the key horses, and we can have a look at Brown Advisory form, in which Salva was third and Wendigo unfortunately took a tumble. Yeah,
and Salva obviously got ended up at right at the back, which was a little change of tactics for him, slightly maybe, where I'm guessing. But anyway, I think he came home well, Lydia, and I do think he's the one that you would be chosen. Had to jump over the horse that fell, Kate Doughty. Wendigo, Cheltenham was too sharp for him, wasn't it? He looks like a flat tracks, long straights, and not too many bends suit him, so maybe he'll be better at Aintree. But I love the way Salva came home onto the back of Kidspool and Final Demand, and Cocktail Divin will run the day before, isn't he? And we'll see how that form holds up. He just didn't stay, but I love the way Salva came home, and maybe he will bolster the chances of Oscar's brother in the Grand National.
Yeah, I just think that both Salva and Wendigo shape like they're going to be really, really good staying handicappers, and that Salva maybe, you know, real proper trip. I just wonder about this race. It looks up for something else happening. How about the Jack Richards form, Gold Dancer second, Regent Stroll third?
Yeah, and Kiss Will was fourth. He was thereabouts. He picked up at the third last in the Irish National. Paul did think he was beaten, so maybe second, third is where he was going to finish. It goes on trial here. I don't know. Not so sure about Regent Stroll. Obviously, Galway Potter came from winning that Jack Richards to winning the 3 mile last year at Aintree, but Regent Stroll couldn't win it. Yeah,
if Regent Stroll could settle, I know that can be an if, but he did towards the end of last season. This trip could really suit him.
He's not quick, so probably wants this trip, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I also think that Jordan Schross never really got into it. I'm kind of going Jack Richards into this race at this stage. I reserve the right to change my mind.
Don't have a strong opinion on it, to tell you the truth.
OK. That prize guy, Top Novices Hurdle, that is what it's called. And there is the field for you. Hood first time for Sinatra. And the Supreme is the key form line, clearly, with the second Sober Glory and the fourth Baron Noir.
Yeah, and look, I was with Sober Glory and I'm still with him. I think he's a cracking horse for connections and for Johnson White and Philip Hobbs. Loved him. I thought he got a really good ride in the Supreme, dictated things in front, jumped really well. Now, I know the eventual winner makes a mistake at the last as well, but I thought the way this fella was ridden off the bend and goes, I think he flies the last and he makes All Park Star work unbelievably hard to get by him. I think he's a cracking horse. Don't know if they're going to go hurdling or chasing with him next year, but I think he'll round out this season on a winning note. Just changed his mind and galloped out through it. He flies that and he has the other horse on the back foot. I thought it was a cracking run from him and I think he takes all the beating. Baron Noir stayed on, but I don't see how he makes up the ground.
I've got a wild one here. I think starting 15 could run well.
Yeah, not
on
that
this
wild.
ground.
On this ground, yeah, not as wild as you think. Has a chance, but this is a different level for him.
He could be a proper hurdler next season, I think. He's the kind of horse coming from the Supreme, the one that you're thinking, champion hurdle?
He could be. I think that, in fairness to him, he's been fairly solid. One poor run all season, and I think I like him. I really like him as a horse.
OK. The JCB Melling Chase is known where we next stop, and there we are. And the key point is that Grey Dawning wears first-time cheap pieces. What do you make of that?
He does, and Harry is riding him over a load of to Tristan Durrell rides. First-time cheap pieces. He's won. Was his Jack Richards a Grade 1 or was it a novice handicap when he won it?
I think it was a Grade 1.
Yeah, so he's won at this trip in the past. They were convinced he was a Gold Cup horse. He didn't quite get home in the Gold Cup. It wasn't quite good enough. I'd probably be with Hartwood. Where would you be?
I think the cheap pieces could help him. I mean, it might help him jump better. Let's take a look at Hartwood's career best performance, though. He comes here off that career best. He
does, and he jumped out behind JPR1, Banbridge, Matata, John Bon, Impere Pass at the back, who runs over 3 miles. And the day before was never really going. Thought he was always travelling, Hartwood. Now, obviously, no factor file, made it quite a different race. Pinged the fifth last, gets up here around the bend to the fourth last, has John Bon inside him in a pocket. Third last, it's all over here, bar the shouting for him. But when you look at Grey Dawning, if you think back to him winning Betfair Chases and they were trying to restrain him, take him back, stick cheap pieces on and use his jumping, use him in the air. Does that just give Hartwood something to shoot at?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think that could be quite an interesting match between the two of them, because he was a bit scruffy with his jumping at this meeting last year, Grey Dawning. And,
he was, yeah.
And ridden that way.
Yeah, you're going to completely turn it on its head. You were always conserving him. Cotswold Chase, Gold Cup, even Betfair Chases hanging on to him. You go back down and trip and you're just going to put your foot in the engine and keep kicking, aren't you? That's
going to be a good one, I think. The odds checker Sefton Novices Hurdle is the last one that we'll talk about. This is the 3 mile novices Grade 1, and I do like this race, I have to say. Right, Turner's Novices Hurdle was my way into this race. What did you think of this?
When horses going up in trip. Look, no drama this end will be on loads of people's lips, I suppose. Going up in trip, missed the break in the Turners. To me, he was flat as a pancake.
What do you make of Sam Twiston-Davis riding him instead of Harry Cobden here?
They're obviously looking to next year. Harry will be moved on to ride the JP horses and Sam is coming in to ride him. Personally, I always think you should worry about the now. Don't be too worried about the future. But obviously they're looking at the future and Sam is going to be riding him next year. To me, at no point, and I know Harry Cobden pulled him up and said he looked after him, it was easy pulling him up. I thought he was flat as a pancake personally to watch him. Horse in front of him, Zeus Power. He got left at the start as well. Look where he ends up. So, you know, JJ Slevin felt he'd enough in the tank off the bend to keep going and missed the last and ran on really well to grab third close home behind King Roscoe Gray. But I think it's a big recovery mission for No Drama this end, and I'd like this fella at a price. Zeus Power. Yeah,
I can see Zeus Power very much. Talk to the Man, so it's not a positive for Talk to the Man in your mind. That's who Harry would be riding for, Paul. You think you'd see it the other way around?
I thought that's the way I saw it, and maybe I could be looking at it back to front.
No, I would tend to see it that way too. And the Albert Bartlett form, which Johnny's Jury won?
I think Gavin Sheehan gave him a great ride. Maybe it wasn't intentional. He missed the break, not where he wanted to be, but I thought his ability to go to plan B straight away and ride a different race was the difference between winning and losing.
Yes. It's always quite a competitive race. Should mention that Frankie John wears first-time cheek pieces in this race also.
Trip might suit him with cheek pieces, actually.
Yeah.
He's not the worst horse in the world now.
OK. Well, we've galloped through 3 days.
How many winners have we found out?
It's going to be a fantastic 3 days.
Yeah, it is. Always is. Great racing, good track. Yeah, it will be. It'll be great, and be plenty of hard luck stories and disappointments as usual as well.
There'll be plenty for us to analyse, is the upside to that. Ruby, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you want to pick up any more about the national meeting, obviously the place to go is racingtv.com/Grand National. That's it for the road to entry. All that remains for me to say is enjoy.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.